Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wildlife Conversations. I'm Jen Ritchie, your host. My guest tonight is a conservation photographer and environmental scientist. He creates images and visual stories that engage our emotional connections with nature and illustrate work being done to protect and restore ecosystems. His beautiful images showcase his home state of Colorado and all of his travels, including Alaska, Yellowstone, the Tetons, Florida, Minnesota, so many parts of Africa, which we're going to talk about tonight. And I've admired his work for several years. I'm really excited to welcome Peter Ismert. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this
Oh,
for a
good.
while now. And yeah, and thanks for having me and waiting for me to get back from my latest trip to Africa.
Well, I was just telling you, it's an honor for me to have you because I really, honestly, truly have loved your work for many years now. So I'm excited to talk about it. It's going to be fun.
Well, thanks. That's nice of you to say so. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And you can see in the chat, we have a live audience tonight. So we're recording this live with chat live. And so people, if you want to say hello to Peter and tell us where you're listening from, go ahead and do that. I already saw some familiar faces and familiar names in the registrations. And it's so good to see everybody coming back and listening to this. And if you're new listening to Wild Conversations, welcome. Welcome to the Wildlife Conversations family, and I'm glad you're here tonight. We are going to have a great discussion. People are commenting from Kansas City. Monty Duncan is here, Kevin Harris. Let's see, who else? Anybody else want to say hello to Peter? I'm going to get my document up and we're going to start questions. And later we're going to have time for question and answer. So if you're thinking of those during our discussion, go ahead and put those in the question and answer box. And we are going to try to get to those later. But Peter, you just got back from Uganda and Kenya, right?
Right. I'm still pretty jet lagged.
I
So
was gonna say, I was
if I
gonna
nod
say,
off, make sure you wake me up.
we are gonna talk about that later, but um, let's just talk a little bit about how you started your photography. I know you said you grew up in Colorado, which is one of our family's favorite states. Rocky Mountain National Park is our park, and but you started with a Nikon, a couple lenses, and started with landscapes.
Right, right. That's kind of how I started when I was just out of high school in college. I got my first camera, Nikon manual, fully manual camera with mostly sort of like maybe one lens, and then I got another lens, and then kind of landscape style
Yeah,
lenses, fairly wide angle,
yeah,
not very fast, but good enough. It
yeah,
was definitely film back then,
yeah.
and so. I pretty much looked for those landscapes because my college years I spent summers up north of Rocky Mountain National Park at CSU's mountain campus. So I
Mm-hmm,
worked there
mm-hmm.
in the summers. It was a forestry campus and a conference center.
Oh,
So
nice.
of course I had plenty. We were right on the pretty much on the border of the northern border of Rocky Mountain National Park. It's just a
Yeah, yeah,
hike up into the park. So
yeah.
that's kind of where I started it all in the landscapes pictures, getting up early, hiking up in the mountains well before sunrise, getting to the
Hmm.
Alpine,
Yeah.
taking
Oh,
off.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome there. So,
How could you resist not doing landscape in that area? It's just
right. And
gorgeous.
then I was really into flat alpine flowers and
Mm-hmm.
both I think I bought yeah like a macro lens too, so I
Oh,
was doing
fun.
both the flowers and then a lot of broad classic landscape style images of the peaks there, the
Oh,
North
that's so cool.
Range and Northern Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yeah, yeah. I think 19 was my first trip to Colorado, and just like the Continental Divide and we went to Gunnison on a youth trip. And I've never been the same. It's like
Right.
now all I want to do is get back to those Rocky Mountains in some way. It's just so gorgeous. It's addicting. Yeah.
Right, they're pretty diverse and there's always great places to go.
Yeah. And then you said you did some street photography.
Yes. So, on and off, I kept up with the landscape for a long time, and then I kind of got into some other hobbies. And so I kind of dropped photography here and there, on and
Yeah,
off. I
yeah.
was not really that far from it, though. Um,
Yep.
and so then I took, oh, man, I forgot, maybe it was 25 years ago or so. I took some. I went to the local community college and went kind of got a photography certificate or no, associate's degree in
Yeah,
photography.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so the focus of those classes, it was darkroom film, you print making your own prints in the darkroom.
yeah,
And a lot of the focus of those classes was more sort of street photography, stuff you
yeah,
could find easily close by. So
yeah,
I really learned black and white really well. And so the tones of things I really worked on hard, and they taught
yeah,
us how to work with tones, of course, because it was all black and white, and to
yeah,
really maximize that for impacts in your images. So
yeah,
street photography, alleys, anything like that. It was so it was pretty different. And I had a
yeah,
medium format camera. By then I was upgrading to a medium format camera, still film.
yeah.
I really paid a lot of attention to things like that. So that was
That's
like
cool.
an intermediate sort of thing. Exactly.
Yeah, but it's all building on the
Right.
knowledge that you had. Yeah. And
Exactly. Everything kind of builds on itself, and you kind of learn from these different techniques and tools to
yeah,
create your own way of doing things. The thing you kind of go down this path, and you finally get to a place where you really like.
yeah, yeah, that's so true. I mean, I just started with my first DSLR in 2017. So I feel like just listening to you, I'm like, I really still am in those areas where I'm learning lots of different techniques and like tones and all those things. It's like it never stops. The learning never stops.
Right, right. It sure doesn't.
Yeah. So your first trip to Africa, it sounds like changed your
Yeah.
photography journey too.
Yes, it did. Yeah. So yeah, up until then, I was still doing landscapes. I kind of switched back to color landscapes, still film. I think I
Mhm,
finally
mhm,
bought a digital camera, and then I had it a little bit before the first trip to Africa, which was 2012, I think.
mhm, mhm.
I went to Kenya, family trip, and
Yeah, yeah.
it really opened my eyes to wildlife, and that really kind of like, oh my gosh, um, this is what I really like.
Yeah,
So
that's so cool to
yeah,
have
so
that feeling.
it
Yeah.
was really eye-opening. So when we got back, the thing that kind of kept me going into the wildlife direction was maybe even the equipment was more affordable because they were coming out with lenses, the Tamron, the
Oh, yeah,
Sigma
yeah.
one, what is it, 180 to 600,
Yeah, I had that one. I had the
yeah.
150 600 for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have that, and so that's kind of was my first lens
Yeah.
on a I bought a better Nikon digital camera, and so it started coming together with that, and so it made it accessible
Yeah. It's so
for not a
true.
lot of money,
That's
and
so true. That lens definitely makes it more accessible.
right, and pair
Well, I
that
mean,
with
when I bought mine, I was like over the moon. I was
yeah,
so excited because, I'd had a 70 to 200 or something and was just so wanted those moose shots that I'd been wanting for years and years, so it was so nice to get a lens like that to
exactly.
be able to get it. Yeah.
It really makes it, and then so you have this, so you really want to go out and use it, so then it just takes off from there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh my gosh, I know that feeling. So now you shoot Nikon Z9?
Yep, I have a Nikon Z9,
Uh-huh.
and I have the 400 millimeter 2.8 Z lens with the built-in
Built-in
teleconverter. Yeah.
teleconverter. I
Oh my
know, I
gosh.
know. I'm a Canon shooter, so I don't have that. I'm jealous for sure. I've said it before on the
I
podcast.
know. It's
I could have used
incredible.
it in Yellowstone for sure because I didn't have time to switch and I was wishing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
then
nice.
and you've had that for a couple years, switched to that for
Yeah,
a couple years.
I've had it for a year and a half. Yeah, just
Yeah, yeah.
before my trip last year, I think I got it to Africa. So yeah, I didn't get it right when it came out, but
Yeah.
I eventually decided to fork over the money
I
and
know. I know. I know. Did you
sold
have
my
the
other one.
did you have the D850?
Yes, I had the
Yes.
D850 as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Everyone loves that camera. And I know it's really hard for people to switch over from that to digital because it was such a great, great camera body.
right.
That's what I hear over and over.
I had the 850 and the D500, and
Yeah.
that was a good combination.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I mean, there are so many good combinations. And so
Hmm.
I don't want to make sure I don't want to make people think they have inferior things. There's so
No, 'cause
many good things.
everything up until then has worked fine,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it might do some different things, and you can do more with with that camera, that doesn't mean you can't do enough with everything else. It's
Yeah,
like
that's
I
right.
was probably perfect. I had a Sigma 500 millimeter lens, at their 500 millimeter version of the Nikon 500, and
Mm-hmm.
that was fine too. I
Yeah,
took
yeah.
that to Alaska several times, Africa
Mm-hmm.
several times, and it was
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yep.
Just the 400 with that 2.8 aperture, be nice.
It's nice. It's very nice. It's so true.
Yeah.
You and I were talking over before this, so just through our prep for this chat tonight, just how David Duchemin was talking about the two different categories of photography. Like he said, often people just want to talk about the technical, and sometimes the creative is not talked about as much. And you were saying, well, possibly there's a third category as well. Like there could be the practical of like getting places, deciding where to go for what species, deciding what gear, like deciding
Right.
if you should do a guide. It is, I think, partly this started because in Alaska, I was talking with Maureen Madsen and Jenny Cannon after they did their trip and I did mine. We met in Anchorage and we realized there are so many ways to do Alaska and so many questions you could ask beforehand. And if I would have known more, I would like to have known more and more, just to know what to choose, what would fit best for me. And what they were saying the same thing. And so I think that's true. It does seem like there's a third category. Maybe there's more than that, but just the practicalities of wildlife photography. There's a lot of ins and outs to kind of navigate.
Yeah, there sure are. And that's sort of when he was going over those things, I was trying to think, okay, it seems like there's another, like you said, there's another component here.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, um, I David got it right with the other two, though, technical and creativity. I purchased one of his classes a while ago, and
yeah.
it's
They're so good.
no, they're so good.
Yeah.
And so it was on v creating a vision or creating a portfolio and a vision and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. And
Yeah,
so I'm trying to think of what else is there that's sort of my stumbling to getting good stuff, good photographs. And
it's
it's
true.
I think this third piece that I think of is like approaching the scene. And it even starts like before you even leave your house almost, because you're trying
So
to
true.
decide what's the best time of day to go, where are you going to go, how's the weather that day for being able to create photos. It's things like those kind of considerations that then will maximize your ability to be creative and to excel at the technical pieces once you're on scene.
Yeah,
So sort of a lot of these it's like field craft as well. It's sort of it gets into knowing animal behavior and the reactions. What habitat do you want to photograph them in? And so
yeah,
that'll dictate where you go. Um, and it's just the considerations about the animal's reactions to people. Are they nervous? Are they welcoming to people? And so that also dictates where and when you'll go, what time of year and everything like that. And even location might dictate, okay, will you be able to get creative portrait type images, or will you also be able to get creative animal in the environment type images showing their habitat?
yeah,
So that's a consideration. So where do you go to get one or the other or both? And of
yeah.
course, weather has something to do with that too. Are you going on a time when you can get those things? If it's just going to be bright and sunny all day, you might not have as much. It's going to be more difficult than if you have some nice filtered light during the middle of the day.
So
uh,
true.
yeah, some color light in the morning and the evenings, things like that. And so there's kind of like that things like that I'm always thinking about before I take a big trip.
Right,
Um, when's the best time to go to Africa?
right.
There's multiple times, but if I have to go, say, this time of year, what am I going to be looking at? What's the weather going to be like? What animals are on migration and things like that?
Oh my
Is it
gosh,
going to
it
be
is so much.
brown?
You need to, this is what you need to create for us, Peter. You need a checklist for us for this whole third category because it is so true. People think it's so easy to go and take an image, a beautiful image of a bison or whatever, but it takes time. It takes time to think about when am I going to go? How do I get there? Am I going to go guided? Like you're saying, all these things. It's not just snapping a research shot, it is so much, there's so much thought that goes in it. So
Right. Yeah. And then, so I try not to get too bogged down in that and
yeah,
overthink it, but there's
right.
things that I do still consider. If I just want to go out and take pictures, I'll still do it. So
Sure,
it's
sure.
not stopping me,
Right. But it seems like if
regardless.
you're thinking of those things, like we've talked about before, like a checklist before you go out, like knowing, having your ISO, your shutter speed, all those things ready before you go out, like the technical stuff kind of
Yeah.
ready before you go out. But it's also like the little bit of the research, like the field craft that you were saying, and the travel and the gear, like what do I need and what do I need to know before I even get my camera set up, you know? So it's
Yeah.
so true. It's so true. When you were thinking about this recent trip to Africa, you went to Uganda, right?
Yeah. I went to
And
Kenya and
Kenya?
Uganda.
Okay. So you'd been there before, but were there new things you had to think about or?
Um, there were yeah, the first piece of it was Kenya. I went there, I think our first day in the our first drive was December 5th, and our last day was the 14th. So we were doing drives from the 5th to the 14th. But I had been there previously the year before to the same lodge,
Okay.
Sea Tented Safari Camp. It's a camp that really focuses on photography.
Yeah.
And so, it's just north of Masai Mara,
Hmm.
national park. So it's right there. And
Hmm.
so I kind of knew what I was getting into and what was needed. So from last year, there was a lot of things that like, oh, I should have done this or I didn't do that, you know.
Yeah.
So the second time there, I really wanted to fix those things that I
Yep.
missed or that I messed up on and all those things. Okay, I didn't get low enough for the sunrise shot or, and so you don't know it until later and you might only have one chance at it. So
Yeah.
this year I tried to remember some of the things that I did wrong on those kind of practicalities of maybe it was even more closer to being in the scene, but doing things right and um, working with the guides because they're just awesome guides and they know where to go and how to set you up for
Yeah.
photographs. So a
Yeah.
lot of that's helped by the guides for sure. And
Yeah.
so you can really, once you kind of have that dialed in, you can really sort of focus on the creativity and the technical pieces of that. So I tried to fix some things that I didn't do right last year, and hopefully I got some new things this year, and I'm still
That
looking
is
at
so
pictures.
cool. Yes, I feel like that I see that in your work though. I see the thoughtfulness and the precision, and I see you like waiting and looking for the light in the weather, um and just how you'll revisit spots. I've noticed that over the years, like that you have a commitment to certain spots, and like, I mean, it just comes through somehow. I don't know, but that research comes through. That's when I think of your work, I do think of that. And I can tell that you have like a work ethic or a commitment to certain areas to make it better. Like it just comes through.
Yeah, it's almost sort of like even when I'm there, I'm almost thinking, oh, I missed this. I'm going to come back next year. So whatever keeps me coming back, I'm already thinking about the next trip and stuff like that. So
Well, it is good to look at it and kind of dissect. Okay, how was that experience?
yeah,
How were my shots? How could I make them better? It is good to reflect and then to plan ahead. So I think that's really good tips for everybody to think that way.
yeah,
I'm not sure I
exactly.
always do that because you're kind of
No.
always moving on to the next trip, or the next
Yeah.
day.
Exactly. So, yeah. So this year, with Uganda added onto it, I had to think of like, okay, what do I need for both countries, both
Hmm.
situations, which were completely different.
Yes.
So my wife's living in Uganda right now. She's working for the Peace Corps, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's already there. So she met me for the Uganda piece, and she's the one that really kind of set up um the the trip for the most part.
Hmm.
She kind of
Hmm.
got the travel company or the guiding company that we went with, and then we went
Yeah.
over the itinerary. So that was a big piece of that is this practical considerations. We had a lot of flexibility because we're going to multiple places in Uganda. So we
Yeah.
looked at that and tried to figure out, okay, what's our best bet to try to get some of the images we wanted. So, for
Right.
example, the shoebill storks near Entebbe, there's a swamp there. So we shot, okay, we're going to get there. So she set it up. She thought, well, let's go in the evening one day, in the morning the next day, because the
Yeah.
evening could be cloud cover, and so we won't have this harsh light because the afternoon clouds. And we were
Yeah.
right. The clouds came over, and we had better light in the evening. The next morning, we had the nice morning light, but then it got really harsh pretty quick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you're
that
trying both and planning that ahead.
Yep, exactly. And we did the
Yeah.
same thing for the chimpanzees. We did the chimpanzees one evening, hoping that we'll get the cloud cover, and we
Yeah.
did. And then you
Yeah.
compare those to the next day, and you don't get out very early because it's a whole process, and then you go through an orientation. So you're not out at first light. But the evening shots were a lot better because we did have some cloud cover, and that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Here's some I have recent photos. You already sent me photos. You just landed a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
It's so fun. I can't even believe that you're able to do this today. But so tell us a little bit about this one.
Which one are you showing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you see it yet?
I have it minimized at the set
I think
moment.
it's your chimpanzee.
Oh yeah, the chimpanzee. So that one, correct. So the chimpanzee tracking is really quite the experience because um, that was the first day when there was a little bit of cloud cover, so I didn't have the harsh lights, but it was like a real low light situation.
Mm, mm,
Because
mm-hmm,
in the jungle, in the
mm-hmm,
rainforest, especially that's in Kabale National Park.
mm-hmm.
You hike there, and there's just so much cover that it's dark in there. And when it's got a little bit of cloud cover, you don't get those bright highlights and everything in the background. So everything's kind of softer.
Yeah,
Some light does come through, so you get a little bit of change in lighting.
yeah.
So it's really a neat experience when you get there. Yeah, the chimpanzees are something else. So we saw them twice, and it's really exciting. If anyone ever wants to go do that, you make sure you do it. It's really good.
Yeah.
And we were of course, Uganda, and we just built it into our itinerary to do it 2 days back to back. And you hike maybe 2 hours or so, and this depends how far the chimpanzees are.
Oh,
And
wow.
so in the last half hour, it's off trail, and they have machetes, so they're cutting their way through the jungle, and it gets fairly difficult. It's
Mm-hmm,
steep, and you're pretty much just walking on vegetation.
mm-hmm,
There really is no because it's so thick, and
mm-hmm.
most of the time you're on some sort of vegetation walking up these steep hills, and um, but it's worth it once you get to them. It's something
Yeah.
else. You hear them in the distance, and then so
Oh,
you know you're
gosh.
close.
Yeah. Is this your first time seeing them?
Yes, first time seeing
Yeah.
chimpanzees.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
cool. That's so cool. And you waited, it looks like, for the light to be perfectly on its face.
Yes, it was kind of shining through. There's a lot of times when I was taking pictures of them where it wasn't working.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
kind of have to, and you have maybe in any one little area you're working with, you might have 4 or 5 chimpanzees, and so
Mm-hmm,
you're looking for ones that have that lighting where there's
mm-hmm.
not some distracting thing in the background or it's
Yeah.
minimized.
True. Oh, my
And
goodness.
for the chimpanzee, since it was fairly thick jungle, I didn't even hardly try to get more of a broader shot because it was just too much jumble.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't soft enough or clean enough
Yeah.
I thought, to make a picture like that. So I kind of did more portrait shots. And
Yeah.
so that's what
Makes
that one
sense.
is. So I kind of came in a little bit closer
Yeah.
and tried to really just get sort of some emotion and character out of the
It's very
chimpanzee.
cute.
Yeah.
And waiting for that light.
Waiting for the light or
Oh,
hoping they're going to
goodness.
move. Yeah, they're moving constantly. So you kind of trying to catch them when they're got the light just right and your
Yeah.
background still looks good.
Yeah. And then gorillas.
The gorilla, yeah.
That's
That
Uganda as well, right?
That's in Uganda as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a little further south in Uganda, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a fairly difficult hike as well. That was even more difficult, and I think that
Yeah.
one even had more vegetation in it. So it
Yeah.
was a lot tougher where we found the gorillas that day, and
Yeah.
so we had to pretty much peeking through openings through the jungle to get to see them. So again, I was really using I pretty much just used my 70 to 200
Oh, wow. Yeah.
lens. So you're
Mm-hmm.
really close. Um,
Yeah.
but you can't get so close because there's a branch there. So you kind of have to find places where you can peek through the jungle a little bit in some situations. So
Mhm.
it's kind of a neat effect. So you can still kind of get their habitat in somewhat
Yeah.
with some of the jungle in there. If you kind of have to use the jungle creatively, so you don't it's not working against you. You try to get it to work for you.
Yeah. You just
Or
frame that left side. It looks really beautiful
yeah, it's
at
kind of
that
turned out
gaze.
okay with that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That gaze is really pretty.
Yeah.
So you're so close. Are the guides right there?
Yeah, the guides are right there,
Okay.
and they're really brave with them because they know them all. And
Hmm.
that silverback there, he charged us 3 times. It's
Oh
like, oh
goodness.
my God. And the guides are kind of laughing because they know he just loves to charge people.
Oh
And he
no.
stops like 4 feet in front of you, kind of grunting and stuff, and then he stares.
I don't know if you're talking me into this.
It's just the first time it was a little spooky and he didn't charge. Yeah, anyway, the way he charged, it wasn't right at me, so I didn't get a good shot of him when
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
stopped. Someone else did.
Yeah.
And I was like right next to him though. So after he did that once, and the guide said that this one really likes to sort of almost play charge, so it's like false charging. And so when he did it again a couple more times, I wasn't as startled.
Yeah. So you're like, please, please stop.
Please stop.
That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah,
Now you're going to have to tell me the name of this monkey because I don't know.
that one is the golden monkey. I think that's what you're looking at. I'm sorry, I don't have
Okay,
my.
I'm sorry. I think I need to share my screen one more time. So I'm going to try this again. I'm getting a technical note.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Okay, let's see. Stop the share. I'm going to try one more time. I can see it on my screen. There we go. Can you see it now, Peter?
Um, I kind of have everything minimized so I
Yes,
can.
I think it's on now. I hope everyone in
Okay.
the chat can see that now.
Yeah, that's the golden monkey.
Okay, golden monkey. That's right. You wrote that to me and I forgot. I was
Yeah, and that's down there near the gorillas, and you also trek to that one. All these primates you do these treks to, and the golden monkeys was, I think we hiked 6 miles, 6 or 7 miles total, like 3 miles in and 3 miles out. And
okay.
again, it was not as steep as the gorillas, but kind of the same area. That was in
Yeah.
Mahinga National
Yeah.
Park, getting close to Rwanda, way down there in those volcanoes. And they're great too. And there's a lot of them, and then you get really close, and they're moving a lot, so it's really hard to get them in a good spot. And we had a bright, sunny day, um, so fortunately, we had enough tree canopy cover to provide some of that shade, so
Hmm.
there was more even light under there. So I really
Hmm.
there's a lot of great poses, but there was completely blown out backgrounds with just scattered leaves that really didn't
Yeah.
add to the photograph. It just made it kind of look too harsh. So I really tried to work with the monkeys that were closer underneath a lot of the canopies to get kind of that softer light
Yeah.
coming through. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You're working constantly with the light restriction, it seems like.
yes,
And then
constant.
and then it sounds like with them a lot of contrast in that. Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of contrast. So you trying to find, or you find one, it's like, okay, stay there, it's perfect. And
Just
they're
freeze,
doing,
freeze.
they might be eating or something, but they're not looking at you or something like that. So
Uh,
it's frustrating, but you come away with some still because they still give you, for each of these primates, you're allowed to stay there for an hour. So
okay.
that's kind of how they do it, just to not
Yes.
overstress the animals and
Yes.
minimize the number of people visiting too. So especially for the gorillas, there was only 6 of us visiting that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's fairly minimal impact on the animals, and they seem to almost enjoy it, like they expect you to come.
Yeah.
They're so
Yeah.
used to it
Well,
that
it
they
sounds like another element should be physically fit. That's part of the research too.
yeah. Definitely. Yeah, because on the monkeys, I think I was using my 400 a lot because they're smaller and I didn't want to, I knew it was I brought both cameras, but I think I used my 400 a lot on the monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because but then I did use the 70 to 200 for some more broader shots when I had the opportunity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
chimpanzees about the same.
I think I have another Africa photo. You had beautiful images, but I don't think it's from this trip, but Oh my goodness, there's something going on tonight with my pictures. I'm sorry, everybody. I promise I am clicking on the right things and it's like not coming up right, but I'm gonna try this again. I am having technical difficulties. It's you.
That's me. Now I saw that. Yeah.
I'm clicking on the right ones and it's not working. So I'm not sure what's happening tonight, but um I think it was like, yeah, they are not working.
Saw something flash by there for a
I
second.
know. I'm trying. It was another picture. Yeah, I'm clicking on the images and they're not coming up. So that's the problem with the screen share, but I will keep trying here in a minute. But you went specifically this time for species that you had not gotten before.
Yeah, the Uganda piece,
Yes,
correct.
the
Yeah.
Uganda piece. And do you feel
Uh-huh.
like you were successful for the most
Yep.
part?
Yeah, we got the shoebill stork, the chimpanzees, the gorillas, and the golden monkeys. And there was a lot of other birds and things that we saw too. We saw
Yeah,
went to Queen Elizabeth National Park and saw lion and leopards, which we saw a lot of in Kenya. So we tried to do things differently in Uganda that I hadn't done in Kenya before. So
yeah,
got didn't really ask to do a lot of game drives and things at some of the other
right,
parks. So
right.
we kind of winged it. So, but my wife was good at trying to figure stuff out, and she's a
That's cool.
photographer too,
Yeah.
so she loved it as well. She
Yeah, you
hasn't,
guys are kind of a team, you said,
yeah, kind of a
in your
team.
photography journeys. I love that. My husband's not a photographer, but I definitely consider him part of my photography team.
Yeah, I saw you two working together in
That's
Teton
right. That's right.
somewhere.
I
Is that
know.
where we
Yeah, it
saw
was the
you? Yeah.
Tetons. Yep.
Yep.
He helps me spot and
Yeah.
his eyes are better than mine. So I appreciate that. And so are you already like researching this Uganda trip and thinking about the things you want to do differently the next time you go? Or do you think
Yes, I was thinking of that.
I figured?
Because our guide told us that for gorillas, where we saw there's another park right next to where we saw them, where there's less vegetation, and he says they're
Hmm.
out in the open more. And
Hmm.
so I'm thinking, okay, maybe we'll try that next year, or
Yeah,
try
I figured.
do two gorilla trekking trips. But gorilla trips are more expensive. In
Yeah,
Uganda, you pay $800 for the day just to see
yeah,
them. And
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of it goes to the conservation of the park and everything, so that's okay.
yeah,
But to do it twice, it just adds to your trip cost. The chimpanzees are a lot cheaper, and so is the golden monkeys. That's why
yeah,
we did it twice.
yeah.
But yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking, well, okay, next year maybe we'll just stay down there and not get some ancillary parks and things a little more north, and maybe we'll just go to one place, kind of like how I do it at Oltepesi in Kenya.
Hmm.
Just stay in one place and do things from there and get to really know the area well. So
Yeah,
maybe I would go to Uganda and kind of stay where you can reach all those primates pretty easily and maybe do some other things as well.
yeah. It does feel good to be familiar with the spot and go back again.
It does,
It,
right?
it's really hard to go somewhere for the first time. I just was in Yellowstone in the winter for the first time and I felt a little discombobulated,
Oh, yeah.
not really knowing it that well. I've been in
Yeah.
the summer, but just not, it's totally different when it's all covered in snow and you can only go in one road or in the snow coach. So yeah, it takes time to get used to places and get a feel. So I always like that better, but you want to try new things.
Right, it's give and take. Yeah, you
Hmm.
sacrifice one.
Hmm.
So you kind of do both. You do some things where return, and then you find a place that's new and go to, like
Yeah,
the Uganda thing. So,
yeah.
um, and I've been to Zambia 3 times. So I kept for Zambia, I went back 3 times in a row. We found our a great guide. He has his own business there, Ed Self. And
Okay.
so once you get a great guide and company to go with, you just go with them again because they know what you want and you kind
Right.
of start to know the area. You know your guide. He's a photographic guide. He knows how to take pictures, how to set up. Excellent photographer. So it all works together. And so when you do that multiple times, you become like a team with your guide. And
That's nice.
yeah, and so they know what you want and what you'd like, and you can easily communicate. So I
Yeah.
really look forward to going back to see Ed again in Zambia someday. I haven't done that
That's
for
so,
two or
it's
three
nice to
years.
have friends around the world like that too.
Yeah, right. Contacts. You do make contacts when you're out there, and
Yeah.
that's part of that practicality thing again. It's like
Right.
getting the right people to go with, whether they're the guide or the company, even your friends, because you learn from your friends. And on this trip, I learned from my friends in Kenya a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
went with a fairly good sized group to the Kenya piece. There was 9 of us, and
Oh,
we
wow.
were
Hmm.
um, split and kind of took over the camp, Old Tepesi, and we
Hmm.
had 3 trucks between the 9 of us, and the
Oh, that's
trucks are
nice.
the another practicality thing is the trucks there are cut out. They don't really have sides, so you can get down really low just by putting your camera. It's like the side of the truck ends kind of at the wheel well level,
Hmm.
so
It's
you're already
important.
low, and
Yeah.
you can hang out a little bit and get your camera out there a little bit too. So that's
Yeah.
another practicality thing is like, what's your vehicle like that you're going to be using? Can you get the camera out the window? And
Yeah.
at Old Pepsi, they have the whole sides are gone. So you can easily get 3 people in there, plenty of room that all get really low.
Yeah, and you said it earlier, like the camp was for photographers, and
Yes.
that's another thing people need to look for if they're going to do that. Is
Right.
is it for photographers, or is it just for the safari and adventure, or is it geared towards serious photographers?
Correct. Yeah. So some aren't and some are. They just kind of depends what their focus is. And
Yeah,
you usually tell. I mean, you read the reviews and kind of see what
yeah,
their trucks look like. And
true. And talk to
um,
other people who've gone.
on. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And
And
make
three
sure that
person, three people per truck, that is, you're not crammed in there. That's going to give you enough space to go from each side of the vehicle to shoot what you see.
right. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So 3 people, you four would is we had four a couple days because one of the trucks had a mechanical problem for a morning, just one
Mhm.
morning actually. And it's
Mhm.
a little tighter, but it's doable. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Last year I went with my wife and it was just the 2 of us and it was great. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
yeah. We're
Like the
like
whole
taking a
thing for
nap
yourself.
there. They take seats out. You take all the seats out and just have 2 seats and
Oh, that's
kind
nice.
of lay in there and take a nap when it's hot and sunny.
Well, to be able to get low, that's really cool because I've heard other people making mechanisms like on monopods to get
Yeah,
low and
you can
things
do
like
that
that.
too.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It can do that as a combination. So
Yeah.
exactly.
So, did you have a favorite experience in Kenya?
Oh yeah. The one that comes to mind is there was a buffalo kill by a
Okay.
pride of lions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'd been quite a few times. I never really saw a buffalo kill yet. I've seen some tries where they chase them around, but they give up. The lions
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And so this one was like, it couldn't have been better. It was like the sun was above the horizon going down. So it was that orange light. And the guides there are so good. They go, okay, we're going to try this backlight. And they're right. The backlight for that, because you get the dust, you get
Yeah.
the stuff flying up from the ground. And like there's like 4 lions all trying to take down this buffalo, the water buffalo, a Cape
And your
buffalo.
adrenaline is
Yeah, that's the one where I was really like my friend said I was shaking. It's
well,
like,
that I think it was Sean Downey that was
yeah,
telling me
Sean.
you have to ask him about how much he was shaking in Kenya.
I guess I was. That's like I was so like more like excited. I can't believe this is happening. I was shaking. And I think I was screwing up my camera a couple of times. I forgot to flip the teleconverter off, so I was too close in for some of it. It lasted about an hour, so I had time to make up for my
You had a
mistake.
time to, yeah, you had a time to recover.
Right,
But
I
it's
did
so
recover for
true.
some
In
of my
wildlife
mistakes.
photography, the adrenaline is a real factor.
Yes.
I mean, you can't help it. Your body is reacting to like death to
I
kill.
know. It was yeah, it was quite the scene. I won't
Oh
go
my
into the
goodness.
details, but
Right, right. I've had other people that have talked about just times that were really, really hard to watch. And
yes.
like what you have to decide beforehand what you're going to do, how far you're going to follow through with that. And so it sounds like you
Yeah.
guys had an hour of, you
It
know,
would it probably lasted an hour. By the time they make the kill and they're eating and then the sun went down. So
yeah,
you're supposed to be leave the park when, at certain hours. So our guides had to leave.
yeah,
So it would have could have stayed and got a few more shots, but we had to leave and we got plenty already anyway, and
yeah,
everyone else
yeah,
leave. And I think the rangers are there too. So they kind of tell everybody, okay, it's time to go. I
yeah,
mean, they're nice about it too. If something's going on, they're not going to kick you out right then, but they watch you, and when it's time, they feel like you got some photographs. They tell all the guides it's time to leave.
yeah.
You
What are
know.
you watching for in Africa or in Kenya specifically when you're looking for those shots, like in terms of light and background and things like that? What are you looking for?
Well, it always depends. It varies on which country you go to again.
Yeah.
Um,
And this
Masai
recent
Mara,
one, yeah, go ahead. The Masa.
yeah, the Masai Mara is classic for smooth because it's savanna or grasslands, mostly
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
grasslands. So you're getting a lot of nice, clean backgrounds
mm-hmm.
for shots. And if you get some cloud cover, you can pretty much shoot all day long.
Yeah, that's nice.
So yeah, it's really nice. So you can get those portrait shots when you get close to the animals.
Yeah.
And then the morning and evenings. Um, the sunrises and sunsets there are spectacular. So and I just posted my first picture on
I was
social.
gonna say, I wanted
Yeah,
everyone to check that out today. Yeah,
yeah,
that
you get
beautiful
a lot of
elephant.
these. Yeah, you get these silhouette shots because we leave the camp and you're driving into the park, and so we're looking for animals silhouetted all the way down.
Right,
They're just
right.
there. And so the guides kind of know, okay, we got to go here to get that. So they
Mm-hmm,
kind of
mm-hmm.
figure out where on the road they have to go in order to get the best view of that silhouette. So those, like every morning we were doing that pretty much, or keeping an eye out for that.
That is so cool. Do you have like things people, well, like the list you mentioned is like people need to think of the species they want to see, the season, what's happening in each season, weather, and like the budget, the cost of
Budget,
the
yeah,
budget of how much they have to spend. And I know
yeah,
sometimes you can do trips with more people per vehicle, and that can be a little cheaper if you really want to go to Africa that way. And so
yeah.
there's so many factors.
There are a lot of factors, and budget, yeah, that's usually a key one for
Yes.
everybody. And
Unfortunately, all this costs too much.
yeah, it does cost money. Well, and the reason we're going to Otapesi a couple of times is it's not as expensive because
Hmm,
they
hmm.
don't have all the frills that like a super luxury camp has. But it's
Yeah,
a great camp. You have a
yeah, yeah.
great safari tent, and I told some people in our group, the only time you're going to see the camp in the daylight is the first day.
Right,
Because you're
right,
out before sunrise and you come back when it's dark
right,
every
right,
other day, except maybe the last day as well. And so we don't use the camp much for just sleeping and eating dinner.
right, right. As
When
long as
we
you have
go
a
on the
comfortable
road.
bed, a good
Yep,
meal, wake up in the
yep.
morning early and do it again.
And there's water, a shower, and you got your own thing as back of your tent. And so that
Yeah,
one's more moderately priced because they do focus on the photography pieces of it. They
yeah,
have the best guides, so I'm sure that's where a lot of the cost goes.
yeah.
Um, and it's definitely 100% worth it.
That's what I was
But
saying. You don't mind that when your money's going to the
no,
guides and you're
right.
giving you're giving good guides a living and yeah.
Right. It's the local Maasai tribe.
Hmm,
They're the ones that are guides and they're awesome. Every single one
hmm.
of them.
Yeah.
And so, budget wise, I think we were talking earlier that, you know, I like to stay if you can at Otapesi, if you go like a shoulder season, off season, for
Hmm.
two people in a vehicle, it's going to hover around upper 400s, $500 a day, something
Hmm,
like
hmm.
that. And that's for
Okay.
everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and so but at a luxury camp, where you're probably not getting as good of guiding, it's more focused on the adventure. But the guides know where the animals are, so there's usually no
Yeah, yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
All guides there are great. They talk to each other and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You're probably looking at least 1,000 to 2,000 a day.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of depends where you want to what you want to do, and so each camp's a little bit different, and then each country's a little bit different too. Some are a little more expensive because it's a little more remote, or things are
Hmm,
different.
hmm,
Don't
hmm.
have the access, or they just don't have the customer base, so they don't have
Right.
um,
They don't
as
have the supply and demand. Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
That's
different in
true.
some of those countries, and just cost more to operate camps and really remote ones. So.
Yeah. Well, it's on my bucket list. So whenever I'm thinking about going, I'll have to contact you.
Yeah, I have some good
Make sure.
contacts. Another one is one of our trips to Botswana. I use Jamie Tom Conservation Safari Company, and he
Hmm.
can put together a, a package for you in a variety of countries. And a lot of times he'll be your guide, or he finds good guides. So there's a lot
That's
of
cool.
options. You go with the camp, you go with a guide company, you go with someone like Jamie.
Mhm.
There's a lot of different options.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a little overwhelming, kind of like Alaska, which I know you've been to Alaska as well.
Yes, I've
And
been there several times
yes,
now.
you gave me, I'm hoping that this screen share is going to work for some of these. I don't know what's happening, but because your Alaska photos, oh, I think it's going to work. I'm
There
excited.
it is.
Yay. Yes,
Yeah,
that, and we were talking a little bit about backlight and rim light. So this would be a good example of that.
yeah, backlighting and rim lighting is something I've really like to I focus a little bit more on that the last couple of years. Always trying to set up and look for that opportunity first, because as you can see from this picture, the background goes smooth with the backlight,
Yeah.
and you get a bonus of the rim light around your subjects.
Yeah.
So you get this nice, smooth, clean background, the rim light, and there's a little mystery in the animals themselves because you can't quite see everything there. So it adds a sense of intrigue and mystery, and it's just a really interesting way to photograph. So I've
Yeah.
always looked for that shot, is the
Yeah.
backlight, and then if there is rim light. And some
Yeah.
animals have offer better rim light opportunities, especially the ones that have more, fur around the
Yeah.
edges,
Yeah. The
stuff like
fur. Yeah.
that.
Is this Katmai?
That's in Katmai, yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
in Katmai. So I've done Katmai 4 or 5 years in a row now.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, Brooks Falls is, that's a good place to start for everybody.
Yeah.
Because you can
Yep.
see bears. It's a little more controlled situation. It's still really wild.
Yep.
But the bears are somewhat
I
habituated to
cannot get
people
this.
because they're all there. And
I
so
really want this to work. I'm still trying, Peter. I don't know
it
what's
works once in a
happening.
while.
Every once in a while it's working, then I'll click on something else and it doesn't work. Thank you, Zoom, for not working for us.
No.
I don't know what's happening, but well, we talked about low light photography too, and I know some of like your great gray owl photos and things like that are
Yes,
like
ever
that.
since I'm trying to maximize the use of the 2.8 lenses, kind of back to the technical piece of
It's
photography.
so true. That's so
Yeah,
true with
and
that.
that 2.8, you can stay out another, until it's almost dark, completely
Yes.
dark. And
Yes.
so you start to get these effects in your photography, like the blue hour and things like that, where
Mhm.
colors start to change. Of course, your shutter speed's going to change a little bit. It's got to slow down. Your
Yeah.
ISO has to go up. And so and then you can't have too much movement a lot of times, but you get this interesting look at not at when things are really low light in the sunrise or before sunrise or after sunset. And I really like looking for the animals or the subjects um, that have some white in them, like a great gray owl.
Yeah.
They almost glow at night. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's the weirdest thing. When they fly, it's like they have this gray and white on their face, and when they fly, they almost glow at night. So
Yeah.
everything else is dark, and then you can see this owl come flying around, and so if you can capture that in flight, but usually at that hour, it's more of perching situations because your shutter speed's not really fast enough.
Right,
Uh,
right, right.
Good with painting and stuff like that, but it's just harder.
Well,
So
I will link your account definitely in the description, and so people will be able to see your account and see all your backlit photos, and there's great gray owls and bears and all kinds of things that people can see examples of, since I'm having technical difficulties. But that's one of the things I noticed about your work, especially what is the grouse that you have worked with?
I do a lot of greater sage grouse.
Greater sage
Yeah.
grouse. Yes.
Yeah, I do a lot of photography with the greater sage grouse, which is coming up. It's every
Yep.
March, April into May.
Yeah.
So they go to the Lex, and I photograph them a lot. And so I have where there's a couple Lex that I go to that offers some great backlight. So I will
Yes.
also try to get them backlit, and then really at really low light too when they're not
Yeah.
moving too much. It's
And that's
difficult.
one of the subjects I could tell that you visit and that you're pushing yourself to do something different.
Yeah,
I can
try
tell that.
every year. Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
can tell. Yeah, they're always really good, but it's like I can tell that you're putting the time in before and really thinking about it and like pushing yourself to get the shots you want, like you've been talking about.
Yeah, then it's definitely a push because like for the sage grouse, you have to be there before when it's still dark because you got to
Yes,
get there
yes.
so you don't disturb them, and
Yeah,
you don't leave until they're done, which is 9 o'clock in the morning. So you're there like at 4:35 or something like that,
yeah.
and you're just like, oh, what am I doing here? This is cold. cold. It's like snowing.
Yes, it would still be very cold.
It's
So are you in a
cold.
blind or are you not in a blind? Or do you
Both,
both? Yeah,
both.
both.
It kind of depends. The blind, that's where it's kind of miserable. Like, and I use one of those low blinds. It's basically a one person blind where you lay in it
And you
and
can't move.
you can't move. Yeah, it's perfect for grouse. That's what it's for, all types of
Yeah,
grouse.
yeah. And
But
you're
you
like,
can't
these
move.
shots better be worth it.
I know. Yeah, and those are cold mornings. That's kind of miserable. But once the
So,
grouse start, you shake it all off, and you don't
yeah,
even know it that it's
yeah.
cold.
So true. It's so
Except
true.
your fingers, and that's about
Yeah. Well, if you have questions for Peter, go ahead and put those in the Q&A box and we'll get to those in a minute. Please go ahead and ask some of those. And I'm sure Peter will be glad to ask some. We've had covered a lot of really interesting tips tonight. So you might have some follow-up questions. Um, do you have favorite, this is like something we haven't talked about, but do you have favorite experiences in Rocky Mountain National Park?
Um, yeah, Rocky, it offers a lot.
Yeah.
I would say I do photograph ptarmigan there a lot, so I like the
Oh,
ptarmigan in Rocky on
oh,
the tundra.
interesting.
Yeah, so there's places where they're fairly, I wouldn't say common, but when you're hiking and stuff, people see them all the time if you're
Okay.
looking closely. So
Okay.
I go up there and photograph ptarmigan a lot, so I really like that. And then the moose, I really like the moose, of course. So
I do too.
that's usually what I think about when I go to Rocky
Yeah.
is the moose. So
Yeah.
both on the east and west side.
I know we
And
used to see them all the time on the east side for years. So it's probably 15 years. And the Rangers would say, no, 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 they're not on this side. And we're like, yeah, they are. We
yeah, they
just
are.
saw them right here, like we've never seen one there before. And I'm like, well, we just did on the trailhead, or do you pronounce it Sprague or Sprag?
Sprague. I think I say
Yeah, that's
Sprague.
what I
Yeah.
say too.
Yeah.
I hear people say, we always say Sprague, but like that is when we had little tiny kids, that was one of our go-to places because it's a
Right.
quick half mile or mile, I can't remember, and it's flat, so little ones who are toddling can walk on it. But
Yep.
we were telling the kids, they tell us we won't see moose, we're not going to see moose here, so because they were asking and they were little, and we were walking around. I'm like, look kids, here's a little muskrat, you can watch the muskrat. And
Yeah.
my husband said, Jen, there's a moose in the middle of Sprague. And we
Yes,
looked,
that's the hot
is a
spot.
beautiful moose. So this is probably, I would say 14 years ago. And she walked through, got up on the trail, shook off. And of course, all of us were just standing there just in awe. And it just turned into like our magic spot every time we went. There were these beautiful moose early in the morning, in the afternoon, it didn't matter, or rainy day, and we're the only ones there with a big bull moose walking around the whole place. So I think that just spurred me like to get out of my Canon point and shoot.
Yes, that's
Take
what
it
started it for
anymore.
you. Yep.
So we've talked so many times on this podcast how things are building and you don't even know it. Like you don't know how your knowledge is building and your interests and your passions. And then sometimes it just all comes together where you find it, like you did when you went to Kenya for the first time, or your
Right.
first
It just
Africa trip.
yep, it really, and then it grabs hold of you and you just keep doing it.
Yeah,
And it
I
starts
couldn't take it anymore. I remember watching two past the Deer Junction, two big bull moose, and this lady had a huge camera, and I told her, I'm gonna have that someday. I can't take this anymore. And that was the year I went home and we were getting ready to go to Banff. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm buying a DSLR. I
doing
can't
it.
do this
Yeah.
anymore. But those moose in Rocky Mountain, I just fell in love with them. I couldn't help it.
Yeah, it's really something there. It's such a great thing to have close to, the front range cities and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's crowded,
Yeah.
people are going
Yeah.
there a lot, but
Yeah.
you can still make it work. Not too
Yeah.
many people in the mornings and stuff like
Right.
that. So
Exactly.
it still
Yeah. I
work.
have to really watch it where we go before Memorial Day usually, or I get grouchy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how are these people all here already getting ready to like grill out when there's moose that live here?
Right.
Like my friends will say Ranger Jen definitely comes out. It's like, yes, it does. Because I want these moose to be protected.
Yeah.
Gotta watch them. So Well, let's do a little bit of our speed round if you want. And we
Okay.
can, and if people still want to submit questions in the chat or the Q&A, you can. But so I have just a few questions and you don't have to be that speedy.
Okay.
Sometimes people take a little bit longer, but do you have something in your bag that you can't do without besides
Well,
your body and lenses?
yes. I guess I wouldn't say I can't do without, but I always like feel naked when I don't have it for some reason. It's just my simple little remote shutter release,
Oh, interesting.
because I do a lot of low light.
Yeah.
I'm always out there with that 2.8 late at night, and so I do use a tripod, especially when I get to the late hour like that.
Yes. Yes.
And so I've started using the remote shutter release a lot. So it's like, oh, I don't have it. So I can't, when it's almost dark, you can't shake the camera. And,
Right. Right.
and just having the remote, I just have a simple corded one. So I don't have to worry about batteries or anything like
Right.
that.
Right.
And so it's just a simple corded one that goes right on. And then so I pull that out and I'll use it also in the day. Like if I'm setting up on something and I don't have to have the finger on the camera or something like that. So I'll just pull that out and use it, click, click
Yeah.
when something looks good, when whatever I'm looking at is right without
Yeah.
having to change focus or something like that. So
Yeah.
I do use that remote shutter release for low light situations a lot. So
That's a
it
good tip.
comes in handy.
Yeah.
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 And it doesn't take up much room in
Yeah.
my camera
Yeah.
bag.
That's true. I've never used one. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
try
have to I'm
one.
gonna have to do that
Yeah.
because I have a little screech owl that lives in our nature preserve that she's right off the path. So many times she's there and but I'll wait with my tripod late and
Okay.
so
Right.
and get her. But I need to do that. And now that spring is coming, she has a little boyfriend that likes to
Oh,
be
nice. Oh,
like comes
that's
to her
cool.
cavity.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
every
you'll
once in
love
a while,
that.
she's a little
Wow.
red morph. And so sometimes the gray morph will be there and we know it's spring.
Yeah. That's a
So
great
that would
thing
be
to have
fun.
so close. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she's really sweet. I need to get that. So is there something in your bag that you never use?
Well, like what most people say is the teleconverters. I have one and I pack it thinking I'm going to use it. I'm probably going to need it, but then,
Yep.
I just don't use it. And then I also have a neutral density filter that I carry around with me once in a while. And I still
Yeah.
haven't used that much at either. There's situations where you want to darken things.
Yep.
Um, mostly for video or something like that, but I haven't used it. So
Yep.
those two things are getting the boot from my camera bag.
That one does come up. That one comes up a lot. The
Yeah,
neutral density filter. Yeah. Do you do a lot of video? Do you find yourself switching to video or?
I keep pushing myself to do it, and I want to do it because I see other people's videos. It's like, oh my
I
gosh, it's
know.
another world, and I would
I
love it.
know.
And I love the stills so much that I do try the video and then I'm back to the stills again. So
I know.
I guess I'm still not there yet as far as being dedicated to video because I was just like, oh, I gotta get this in stills. So
I know. I'm the same way. And then when I see my video, I'm like, it's not that good.
I know I'm not the
When I see
greatest
other
at it.
people, I know. I'm like, yeah, that's a whole other skill. And I just love catching that gesture or the exact right thing with my
Uh,
moments with the stills. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know.
no, you're kind of like me then. So that's kind of where I'm at with it too. I really appreciate other people's videos though. So,
Yeah, me
and
too.
and there's some things that like I really want to do that. So I'll get there someday. I'll get there.
I know. There's like we said, there's so much to learn and now
Mhm.
with reels being pushed so much, I kind of gave up. I'm like, I just can't do it as well.
I
So
know.
I don't know. I don't know. So do you have a favorite snack while you're editing or while you're driving around?
For driving, I've kind of recently, my new snack has been dried mangoes without the added sugar.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah. Those are good.
I love them, and like they're kind of filling, and like
Yeah.
you're eating a fruit, so
You
and
have to
they're
feel too guilty about
yeah, you
it.
don't have to feel too guilty. Yeah, so I'm trying to switch from chips or something like that to dry.
I
So the dry
know.
mangoes are awesome. So I'm sticking with them for a long time. I'm
It's a
gonna
good
go with
idea.
them for a while.
Yeah. I always think I'm gonna be healthy, but then when I get out there and I'm looking and looking and looking and it's cold or something, then there's just something about comfort that I'm like, well, just give me something comfortable too.
Yeah,
Comforting
there's
too.
that.
I don't know. There's something about the cold. I don't know. Um, so do you have A favorite photographer or favorite artist?
You know, I was thinking, I always come back to, there's a lot of great, of course, there's tons of great photographers out there. That books, I
Yes,
got
yes,
tons of books around here on
yes,
photography.
yes,
But I always come back to Vincent Meunier from
yes.
France. Oh,
Yeah,
he's just a
gorgeous work.
I know. And so we can't get enough of him because a lot of his stuff is in France, and he
Yes,
does a lot of video and things that are just
yeah,
you can just see in France and stuff. But he has
yeah.
that movie, and he does a lot, and he throws some pictures out there once in a while on
Once in a
socials, but
while.
not
Yep,
too much. But
yep.
everything is awesome. So
It
I don't
is.
have one of his books yet. I got to get my hands on one of
I
those.
know. I'm the same. I know. But his work is so beautiful, so
Yeah,
clean,
it's amazing.
striking. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's definitely inspiring. And then have you ever gotten a piece of photography advice that you go back to that you remember?
Um, I was trying to think the one thing that it's nothing really classy or anything. It's just someone told me to get down low
Yep,
and then don't let the horizon line cut the head off of whatever you're photographing, like behind you. So,
yep,
like, if you're going to get down low, make sure that horizon line, especially if it's sort of a sharp horizon, doesn't cut right through so it looks like it's splitting your
yep,
subject in half. So you gotta,
yep.
when you're getting down low, make sure that's not happening. You might have to go back up to go below the horizon or
That's
something
true.
like,
That's
or
a
get
good tip.
even lower so that you're not getting that in there. So
Yep,
that and so that's been my mantra for a while now is to get as low as I can, but make sure I watch out for that horizon line.
yeah. I know. And I do forget about it sometimes in the moment where I get excited.
Yeah. Someone told me about it once, and it's like I've ever since like, hey, that's right. This is a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
better.
Everybody remember that. And also keep your horizon line straight.
Great. Yeah, then you don't have to straighten it later. You don't cut things off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Ugh. I do portrait photography as well, so I have to remember that horizon line for that too. For
Yeah,
too.
right.
Yep.
You can't avoid it sometimes, but
I know.
you do
Yeah.
what you can do.
But like you said, especially when it's really striking and prominent,
Yeah,
try to
right.
try
It's
not
more of
to.
a distraction.
And then do you have a moment that just really filled you, filled your soul, filled your spirit, your emotions? Can you think of it? I know there's probably so many.
Yeah, I have Africa moments and then I have
Yeah.
North America moments. And
Well, tell us both. That's fine.
the Africa one, actually the Africa, I'll be quick. The Africa
That's
one
fine.
was like in Botswana. Um, we pulled up the guides, they're awesome there as well. Oh my gosh. We were photographing wild dogs. And so there's a den where we happened to be that we didn't plan it this way. That was one of the practicality things I didn't know I did, but we did it right. We planned it where the wild puppies were kind of coming out of their dens now at that time of year. It was August. And we were hoping just to see wild dogs, but then like our first day, the guides know where the den is, so we pull up and you don't get too close to wild dog dens because you don't want to impact them, of course.
Yeah.
So we were a little far, and if they were puppies, they would have been a little far to photograph. But when they came out, the adults came back. And the puppies came out and they kind of ran toward the truck. So here we were, kind of out of range, and then they came really close. So they wanted to check out the truck. So we weren't affecting them. And but so then they kind of played and everything. There was probably 7, 8 of them that just played right out in front of our safari vehicle
Oh,
and the
wow.
eating with the adults. So never seen anything like that. And it was just amazing because
I think I have the picture up, but I'm not sure. Can you see that?
let me see.
Is that them?
Yes, that's it.
That's so cute. Look at that. Their legs are so cute.
That's it. They were running toward the truck, and then and I fortunately the driver knew to kind of park somewhere a little bit lower so we can kind of
Mhm.
be closer to
Oh,
eye level.
oh
And
wow. That's a good tip, isn't it, from him?
yeah, and so that's exactly the scene that I'm talking about.
Yeah, because I was wondering how'd you get low? And then
I
the
know.
driver knew.
The driver knew,
Yeah.
or sometimes with drivers, if they're not used to photographers, you coach them and they start to learn. So after the course of the week, they kind of know what you want. So they
Mhm.
start to if they haven't worked with photographers that much, they might not know some of these things, but they start to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's also one thing should have mentioned earlier is importance to have if you are in that situation, you haven't been on safari much, it's good to have a photographic guide as well, not just the guide driver,
Right.
but also a photographic guide that knows how to communicate with a driver that might not have experience with photography. So there's a lot of great guides, photography guide companies, both here in the States that'll take you over there, and then ones that are over there.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And
Yeah.
then my North American experience was probably my first trip to Brooks
Okay.
Falls.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, it's like after seeing bears and Yellowstone and stuff, and you kind of have to be so far and like this. There's a lot of people at Brooks, like seeing the bears. There's the 50-yard rule, but just getting around camp and going up to the falls, there's bears on the
Yeah.
trail, there's bears in
Yeah.
the forest. It's like, oh my gosh, this place is another world. It was like
What month did you go the first time you went?
I've always just gone in September.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
That's always gone in September. And so there's a lot of bears there in September.
Hmm.
So that my first trip there was just like, oh my gosh, this is really, it was like completely different world with bears
Yeah.
just pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere.
They're right off the platform. I went in late June, and so it really hadn't started yet, but we did see a few each time. But it is really cool to experience it. It is a different world. You're right.
Yeah, it's kind of life-changing as far as being photographing bears and just
Yeah.
being with bears. Yeah.
You stay there or do you fly in?
We flew in and we camped at the
Okay.
campground.
Okay,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I've
That's what I
only
was
done that.
wondering. If
I've
you
only
stayed in the
camped at the
campground or
campground.
lodge, or if you just flew in for the day. Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
I think usually when we go, we stay up 7 days. I think two years ago I stayed 2 weeks.
Oh,
So
wow. That's
trip. Yeah.
fun. That's
Yeah.
fun. I want to go back. I want to go back to Alaska.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, someone asked in the chat if Peter could only go to one national park or
Oh
forest.
no.
This is too hard in North America for the rest of your life.
Oh no.
What would be that one park?
Oh no.
Your
I would
portfolio is so diverse. I don't know how you're going to pick.
if I had to pick, ooh, I mean, I would probably pick the Katmai National Park. You know, I mean, there's probably a lot more you can do there. I've gone there
Yeah.
just pretty much for bears, but there's a
Yeah.
lot in Katmai,
Yeah.
and it's remote, so you'd have to get in there each time. But uh, yeah, you can't pass a lot of the other parks up. That's for sure for wildlife. But Katmai kind of has a lot. That's
Yeah.
probably what I'd pick.
Yeah.
Not too practical, but
It's
that's
so
what I would do
beautiful. Yeah.
if I
And
could.
what's the best way, do you think, to do a trip in Alaska to Katmai? Do you do it flying in each day? I can tell by your pictures that you're there though, either
We're there.
camping or on boat.
We're
You're doing
camping.
that. Okay.
It's camping at the Park Service campground
Okay.
at Brooks Falls. Yeah.
Okay.
One
Yeah.
time we went remote, so that was really special as well, where
Yes.
drop in remote and it's remote camping. But
Yeah.
Brooks Falls is great, and so remote camping is different. There's less people,
Yeah.
but so the experiences are different. So you have different things. So it's
Yeah.
always been camping though.
Yeah. And when you did the remote camping, did you have a guide with you?
Nope, nope,
Okay.
nope.
Okay.
I had done Brooks Falls like 3 times already, so
Yeah.
me and my friends, 2 others, Sean and
Hmm.
Andrew,
Hmm.
were we're comfortable with bears already, so we
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
learned their behavior. We're not experts and everything
Right.
like
Right.
that, but definitely not experts. And in fact, I'm pretty much a novice at as well. I should tell you. It'll be a funny story if we have a minute.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. I think Sean has a funny Katmai story, doesn't
yeah,
he?
yeah.
He wanted
He's
you
gonna tell it sometime if I don't say it, so I might as well defend myself now.
something with bear spray, I think.
It had to do with bear spray, and you can know what that means.
Oh dear,
I
what
shouldn't have
happened?
bear spray. So we were watching 2 juveniles, and the juvenile brown bears are the ones that you kind of got to watch out for because
I've heard that.
they can kind of be a little ornery or mess with you,
Teenagey.
testing you. So that's always the warnings I've always gotten. So
Yeah, yeah,
there's three of us were together, so it wasn't that bad. But they were playing out there on the tundra, and then all of a sudden they were sort of like running right at us. So they
yeah,
started out probably like 100 yards away, playing. So we're photographing them, jumping on each other, and then they're running right at us. And then so they didn't. At first I was like, are they running at us or are they just kind of going to go by? But they were running like right at us, like
oh
looking
my
us in
gosh,
our eyes. It's like, oh my gosh. And they're juvenile, so it was like, oh. So I unclipped the safety on my bear spray just in case, just to
yeah,
be a little quicker. And maybe I don't need to do that. That's why I'm a novice at it. So they still coming, so I'm trying to, okay, now what? I got
yeah,
to get out of their way. And so
yeah,
by then they're probably 40 yards away. And I fell because it's all hummocky on the tundra. So I sort of stumbled into like a depression and
yeah.
somehow I caught the bear spray
No,
trigger
oh
on
no,
my sleeve or something. So it's splaying off. These
oh
bears are running
no,
by us. And
no.
I was just so lucky that it didn't spray me or my friends
It's true. It's
in the
true.
face or anything, but it was sprayed all my sleeve and my waders, and it didn't get my camera. And it's like I heard this sound. It's like, what is that? It's like I'm stumbling, trying to stay standing.
Oh
And I think
dear.
Sean was videoing it. I don't
Oh,
know.
sure he was. Sure he was.
Got his phone out.
And he's never gonna let you live it down.
No. And that's like after that, I said, I can't have bear spray. Like you guys are gonna have to protect
Someone
me from
else is
here
in
on
charge.
out.
Well, it's good to know about yourself. It's good to
I
know.
know.
So you know that you're really good at the research, you're good at taking the photos. Someone else can hold the bear spray.
Someone else can do the bear spray. So, and of course, in Katmai, there's rarely, if ever, very many incidents. There's
Right, there's not.
those
Right,
bad things that happened way back, but
right. Yeah.
um,
And I think
now
it's
it's
because people went and pushed the limits.
yeah,
Yeah,
pushing the limits, and
yeah,
that's definitely not us. So,
yeah,
and so it's really just a precautionary thing. So,
yeah. That's hilarious. I knew that was going to come out. I knew Sean wanted that to come out.
yeah, he's gonna get it out. So I thought at least now I can defend myself.
So Peter, where can people find you? Like, where can they find your website and
Yeah,
Instagram?
I have my website. It's Peter Ismert,
Uh-huh.
peterismert.zenfolio.com. And
Okay.
I update it about once a year. So I haven't done it from last year yet. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit behind. And then just social media, Instagram is probably the best. It's just
Yeah.
Peter Ismert at
Yeah.
Peter Ismert. Um,
Okay.
Facebook, I'm kind of trying to phase out. I'm moving over to Blue Sky. So I have a thing on Blue
Okay.
Sky, but just under my
Okay.
name again.
Okay.
Um,
I need to add that to my list because other people are moving that to that too. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good platform for a lot of good stuff for
Okay.
more straight up photography a little bit. So it's good when you have people that you're following there. It seems to work well.
Yeah. I'll have
People
to
do a
check
lot of
that
good
out.
stuff. Yeah.
And you sell prints any of those places or?
The website I do. Yeah,
Okay.
the website I do.
So if people
That-
want to check your work out, they can look at Peter Ismert on Instagram, Facebook, and then
yep.
they can probably message you through there if they want to print or.
Right, exactly. Through Instagram's probably the best. Just scroll through because I put
Yep.
pretty good stuff up on Instagram, kind of,
Yep.
if it's on Instagram, it's definitely eventually going to be on my website. So just
Yep.
scroll through Instagram. And if there's a print that's not on my website, which a lot of them aren't yet,
Right. Right.
just direct message me and I can set something up just as
Yeah.
easy as going through my website.
Yeah. I think that's the same with me too. It's
Yeah.
sometimes harder to do it through the website, but
Right, right.
yeah. Well, it was so good talking with you. I'm so
Yeah,
glad
well,
you joined me. We could probably talk a lot longer about all this stuff because I want to go to all these places.
yeah, we'll have to have a follow-up talk
I know,
someday.
I would love to. I would love to. And I think coming up, I have an interview with Siler Peralta Ramos is coming up, and Tiffany Taxis and D Webb, and so many people are coming up all through June. So I hope everybody will follow along that. You can follow Wildlife Conversations on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram, Jen L. Ritchie. I'm on YouTube under my name, Jen Ritchie Photography, and you can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all this promotion stuff, Peter. It's real fun.
Yeah, well, you have a great lineup coming up. It's going to be a great spring for you. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, there's so many talented, nice people in this community. And it's been such a privilege to talk to people. And when I you know, sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking contacting people at first, but I had you on my list and I was a little scared to contact you, and I'm like, I am doing it. And everyone has been so friendly and kind and so like excited to be on. So I hope people feel that spirit, because I just feel like there's so many nice people to learn from and listen to. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, and everyone loves to talk about photography, so we can do it all day.
That's exactly right. That's
So
exactly right.
no matter what level you're at, if you're, for professionals to
It's so
hobbies and
true.
people getting started, whatever, it's like everyone's got something to contribute to.
It's so
Yeah.
true. I was telling my kids that I wasn't a nerd, and they're like, Mom, all we have to do is mention bears or a camera. And you totally nerd out. And I'm like, that's true. Very true. That's fair. Totally fair. I'll take it. Well, Peter, it's been really good. And we'll have this on YouTube tomorrow, everyone. And Apple and Spotify. So like and subscribe and comment and give Peter all kinds of support. And we would love that. So, Peter, I hope we'll see each other again in the field, hopefully
Right.
sometime,
Yep. Thanks
and
for
talk
having me
again.
on. I really appreciate
You're
being able to talk
welcome.
with you.
You're welcome. Thank
A
you.
lot
I
of fun.
appreciate it. Okay, everyone. Good night. I hope you all have a rest of your good week. So thank you. Bye, Peter.
Bye.